I've been thinking about something lately, and conversations with Shane, who's our CTO, and Andy, and then a few just kind of people in the industry have forced me to think a little bit about how our view of systems actually prevents us from getting systems to do what they really should for us, which is help us and help process flows move smoother. They should be a tool we use rather than a thing we update. And the operational approach that we've taken with Drakewell that is very different from an accounting approach that you see taken almost across the board when you see accounting systems forced into operational environments is the accounting system wants to reflect what the accounting system thinks it knows about reality, but it doesn't know anything about reality because everything's delayed from operations because it's typically a pain in the butt to use, and they don't have the right tools with which to give it information. And we've run into this lately just in terms of thinking about how to help clients, both existing and new clients, look at the difference between operational information and accounting information. And a lot of times people think that their process is broken, when really it's not the process that's broken or inefficient or whatever. It's information is the problem. They have an information problem. They don't have a process problem. And it's a really interesting shift in how we look at it. I'll give you an example. A typical accounting system will not want you to, if you go to pull some parts out of inventory, a typical accounting system will not allow you to assemble a thing with the parts that you just pulled out of inventory if it doesn't think that there are parts in inventory. But you're sitting there staring at the parts in your hand, even though the system says we don't have any, you're looking at them right here. So what an operational software, what an operational tool, an operational system, an operationally focused system should do for you is give you real data about what's actually happening. And so a real operational system should let you use the parts that are in your hand to build the thing you need to build, because that's reality. And then it should understand that reality and send information about what that reality is, real usage, real turnover, back to that accounting system, so then the accounting system actually has good data with which to do whatever accounting systems do. Because accounting is kind of a interesting reality, and then there's the operations world that we all live in, where you're staring at the things that are not supposed to be in inventory, but you're looking at them. So that is the approach that Drakewell has taken, and that our developers and our software engineers and our design team have thought about in a tremendous amount of detail, and they've really challenged the status quo, again, not in terms of how things should be handled on the accounting side, but how can we accurately understand what is actually going on when the system that we use to do so and give us data about it is really rooted in a different type of reality than the one in which tools are built and shipped and parts come in and are used and go out and they're scrapped. And so I learned a term today from one of my favorite engineers, Andy, and it was a premature optimization, and I love it. And I'm going to use this word, this phrase so much because it's awesome. And And it's incredible if you think about it, right? How many businesses prematurely optimize stuff? So you've got a plant manager, or you've got a shop manager, or you've got a business system analyst, manager, whatever their title is. And they're looking at all this stuff and they're trying to think about how they can do this. And so, you bring a lean team in, and the lean team's like, well, if you move this here and you move this here, you could save that guy 32 steps. And everyone's like, yes, no more steps. When the 32 steps might be, not your problem. And so, we're glad that, the guy has to take, whatever, 10 steps instead of 42. But how do you actually know that that's actually improved the process, right? Because you don't actually have a good way of seeing what's happening day to day anyway. So you should do lean things. You shouldn't have your guys walking 6 miles back 4 different times just to do something. That's totally inefficient. But in a lot of the things we found, that's not really the root problem. The root problem is an information problem. It is not a process problem. People get processes. People can look and say, wow, this should be linear, or this should go in a line, or why are we looping back here when we don't need to, or why are we sharing these tools when we could spend $6 and have them have their own individual tools, and then they don't have to wait. People, shop managers, coordinators, plant managers, they're good at that stuff. That's why you put them in their positions, to fix all that and understand the processes and drive them. And so I would challenge anyone who says, well, we'll just make the goals different. We'll just say, well, I'll just mandate a 10-day goal instead of it needs to be at 10 days in 6 months. So you figure out how to do it. And that's all well and good, but if as a business manager or a leader in your company, you're not giving people the tools with which to execute on that, and not only execute on that, but execute on that sustainably, then there's really no, you can set the goal and they'll reach it and they'll do whatever they can to do it, but it won't be sustainable. It won't really, it might be efficient, but it might not be effective. And you won't really know how good you were and how much better you are now, because you didn't actually understand what kind of problem you had. Again, the problem probably isn't a process problem. It's probably an information problem. So what do you do in the scientific method, right? You establish a baseline. You actually understand what in the hell you got, and you need tools. You need to take a good hard look in the mirror, right? You need tool sets that tell you what you got, so you can take that ugly, brutally honest look in the mirror and say, wow, maybe our process is okay. The problem is that the tools that our people had to report on the process were actually the pain in their ass, not the things they had to do in the first place. So you just spent a lot of money, probably a lot of time prematurely optimizing. My dad sees it all the time in the consulting world. He's been a consultant forever. And if you think I'm over-engineer stuff, you should meet my father. I've told people I'm such an engineer. I will analyze whether or not it's actually something that needs to be analyzed, because some things just don't need to be overanalyzed, right? So that's a gate that you gotta get through before you spend any more time on it. So my dad talks about this a lot in the consulting world. He goes in and the company's problems are really obvious, and it's almost painful. But the people within the companies are, A, they're busy doing the jobs they've been paid to do. B, they probably aren't empowered or don't have the approval capacity to make the real fundamental changes that they need to make, which typically involve information flow, again, not process flow. And then the other part of that is how long that he kind of, it's why consultants have jobs, frankly, is because they got to hang around long enough to get the change implemented in people's own businesses. And then the second they leave, guess what happens? 50 to 70% of that probably hangs around. But the actual infrastructure wasn't put in place. So in terms of information flow and tool sets, so that the second 2 years goes by or 3 years goes by, and all of the people that were involved in the consultant changing the way they do things, those guys and gals are gone. They've gotten promotions, they've done whatever, and now you have an also new set of people that reinvent the wheel. Again, more times than not, the process is not actually the problem. The problem is the way information flows within that process. And that has everything to do with the tools that the people who take part in the process have to do their job. And I've experienced this. This is one of those things that, where user interface and ease of use is so incredibly underestimated, and it's so incredibly powerful. And in a prior life, I was in a sales position, outside sales. So I'm constantly in my car. I put 35,000 miles on a truck on Beltway 8 in a year because I was all over Houston making sales calls. And the management team wanted all this information. They're like, who are you talking to? What did you talk about? What's the % probability we're going to win this work? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, I don't know. Okay, fine. So I would do this, and I'd try to kind of update it, and I would take some notes, and I'd take all these notes in my little notebook here, and then I would and every Friday or whenever I had some time, I would shut everything down. It'd take me 4 goddamn hours to enter all my stuff in. So they got this whole new system, and they were like, why are you taking so long updating? They asked the whole sales team. It wasn't just me. And my biggest thing for them is I'm like, you have only thought about what you want out of this. You have only thought about the metrics and the analytics and the business intelligence and all this stuff that you want out of it. But you haven't thought for half a second about giving the people who have the information you want a tool to easily give it to you. I'm like, so you want all this stuff, and I can't even after a sales call make a few notes on my phone in the app, because the app did not work. They purposely did not fund the app, and yet they wanted all this information. So they made it very hard for us to give it to them. If they would have just made the app easy, if they would have thought about us as the users, the real life people who are sitting in their cars in parking lots, rushing from sales meeting to sales meeting to sales meeting, a tool to give them the information, we'd have done it all day long. They could have business intelligence till their little hearts were content. They would have had so much information. They probably would have had, and you know what? They would have had better information. They would have had better information because the second I walk out of a Monday meeting, I would have thrown it in that app and I would have been done with it. They would have had exactly my freshest take on the dynamics that came from that meeting. They would have had better quality data. They would have had more up-to-date data and information. If they would have given half a crap, and God knows how much they were spending on the back end in analytics of the system. They have crap data going in. Good job. So if they would have been, just thought about where is all this coming from and how can we give the people who we need the information from an easy way to give it to us. Give us tools. We're life people. And I get it. You can threaten us with our jobs, you can say, well, you're not compliant with the things that we need you to do, and you can, that's cool and that's fine, and we all did it, right? We all do it. We all sit down and we peck in all our reports every week. All of us do it. But you're inhibiting information flow, and you're hurting, and you're inhibiting the people who you pay probably very good salaries. You're inhibiting them from feeling like they can very efficiently and effectively not only do their jobs, but communicate to you what they're doing and how they're doing it, so that you actually have good quality data with which to run analytics on, and forecasts and business planning strategies and things like that. Okay.